All right, welcome to this week's episode of Politically Charged. I am Jack Berlin, and this is episode 10. Today, July 23rd, well, you'll hear this on July 24th, we talk all things Trump-Russia and the seemingly millions of things that connect the two. We talk about how Jeff Sessions has become Trump's new favorite punching bag, and the demystification of the White House, which will make a ton more sense if you listen to the point where I explain what I mean. I don't know why I use that cadence, but regardless, thank you for checking this out. Like I said, this is episode 10. If you have not already, please go check out the episodes at politicallycharged.us. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack Berland, Instagram, Facebook. All you got to do is search Politically Charged. You'll find us. And, well, this is a short intro. With that, let's go. If I'm getting tired of talking about it, you guys have to be getting tired of listening to it. But we're going to start the episode off with it anyway. Donald Trump Jr. and Russia. Donald Trump Jr. continues his one-man bid to sink the Trump presidency. This week, or this past week, it came out that the lawyer involved in the entire scandal, I guess it's a scandal at this point, it's come out that she had served top Russian spy agencies as their lawyer, as their counsel, which by itself is not incriminating, but it does raise the question about her connections once again. Also, a new development in the Russian scandal with Donald Trump Jr., Donald Trump Jr. himself, and Paul Manafort, ex-campaign manager, current foreign agent, have reached a deal with the Senate Judiciary Committee. In this deal, they agreed to provide records and answer questions in a private session before any public hearing. It allows them to avoid being subpoenaed by the committee for a public hearing. As of right now, the committee still reserves the right to do that in the future. A subpoena, however, was issued to the founder of Fusion GPS, who compiled the infamous dossier on Trump in Russia, particularly the dossier that was about Trump and his escapades in Russian hotel rooms. Everybody's favorite Jared Kushner, however, was not so lucky. He will be stuck appearing before the Senate Intelligence Committee on Monday and the House on Tuesday to answer questions about Russia's influence in the 2016 election. I say everybody's favorite, but at this point he really can't be Donald Trump's favorite with all the problems he's causing him. One thing I want to point out in this Russia story that gets overlooked a lot is that Jared Kushner ran the data operations for Trump 2016. The Trump campaign. That's important because Russia was able to target very specific demographics with their fake news farms, for lack of a better term. And a big question about that is, how were they able to narrow their target audience like that? Russia didn't even know what the DNC was in the past 5 or 6 years. They had no idea. But suddenly, in 2016, with a candidate they are openly supporting, openly trying to help, they figured out how to target the demographics so specifically that they can get their fake news, fake information in front of people where it has the best chance to do the most harm. How were they able to do that? That's part of why Jared Kushner's involvement in this meeting is so important, and why it's huge that he's testifying before the Senate on Monday and the House on Tuesday. I'm sure this is going to come up. It gets overlooked in the broad scheme of things with the Trump-Russia collusion, investigation, scandal, whatever in the world you want to call it at this point. Also, in Trump-Russia, because evidently that's all I'm going to talk about right now, new sanctions. So at least there's one positive. The House and Senate have come to an agreement to install new sanctions on Russia in addition to Iran and North Korea. It was agreed to by both houses of Congress, which is incredible. It gives Congress the veto power on easing any sanctions, meaning Trump, for all of his talk of potentially easing sanctions on Russia, this bill, this agreement would make it much more difficult for Trump to do that without the Senate or the House being able to override him. the whole idea of Trump easing sanctions on Russia is part of the reason our good friend Mike Flynn was forced out of office, because he lied to everybody's favorite, I guess I'm going to use that again, everybody's favorite Mike Pence, who just always looks bewildered about life. People like Seb Gorka, who, I don't know, does he have a job title in the White House yet, or is he still just roaming the halls and burning out with his Mustang in the White House parking lot? But nonetheless, Seb Gorka has said that the Trump administration is looking at returning the estates that Obama seized in the wake of this past year's election. Now, if you remember, Obama, I think at the end of December, early January, seized 2 compounds that were being used by the Russians for their diplomats. Russian diplomats are spies, simply put. They were using these houses in their strategic placements to try and spy on agencies like the NSA. Obama seized them in the wake of the election, and now Trump and his good friend Seb Gorka have talked about potentially giving them back, trying to, I guess, win the favor of Russia for some bizarre reason. Now, the important thing to know about this bill is that, simply put, it's going to reach Trump's desk. Trump is going to have to make a decision on whether he's going to sign it or veto it. And that decision is going to carry a lot of weight. If he vetoes, there's a threat that, well, actually, no, it's going to be overridden. If he vetoes the bill, it will be overridden and it will be installed anyway, which is not a good look for a president, no matter where they are in their term, but especially a president who's been so embattled in his 6 months. It also doesn't help his look with Russia. If he vetoes, that means he's opposed to the sanctions that Congress wants to impose on Russia. Not the best look for somebody who's under an intense investigation about Russia helping him win the office he holds right now. If he signs the bill, he's going to make Russia pretty mad. They are desperate to get out of these sanctions. The sanctions we have on them now have kind of crippled their economy. Their economy is definitely not in the best of shape right now, and Putin can't have that with an election coming up. Granted, he's going to fix the election, but he can't have that. He's trying to make improvements upon it. So, either way, Trump is going to get flack for whatever he decides to do in this situation, either from Congress and the American public if he vetoes, or his base, which includes Russia. Also in the news this week, and of course related to Russia, Trump and his administration is exploring the possibility of him pardoning himself, family members, staff members, and those that kind of blur the lines between those three. He tweeted Saturday morning that he does have the authority to do this. Now, if he pardoned himself, well, it's never been done before. As sitting president, actually any president, because they can't do it once they're not a sitting president, any president has never pardoned themselves. Even Richard Nixon, who resigned in disgrace because of Watergate, was pardoned by his successor, not himself. Experts say that Trump's tweet is inaccurate. It's extremely murky. There's no precedent. Nobody really knows how this could turn out. Does he really have the legal authority to do this? They do say they doubt that he can. Part of the reason they think that it's so murky, that they can't really come to a firm conclusion, is Neil Gorsuch. Neil Gorsuch, as everybody remembers, as everybody knows, was nominated and appointed to the Supreme Court by Donald Trump. He replaced the late Justice Scalia. Now, President Obama also had offered up a nominee in Merrick Garland. So, because Merrick Garland was unfairly and unjustly never given his day in front of the Senate or even a vote, he was never given a hearing, he was never given a vote. Because he did not get that, and because Neil Gorsuch was allowed to take that vacant seat, if Trump attempted to pardon himself, it would eventually reach the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court would have to make a decision on it. That decision, the swing vote would sit with Neil Gorsuch. the president's appointee, President Trump's appointee, would be the deciding vote, potentially the deciding vote, on if the president can pardon himself or not. That's why Supreme Court seats are so important. That's why the Republicans breaking years and years and years of precedent with not even allowing a hearing on Merrick Garland is so important. In addition to Trump looking to break, well, there's no precedent. In addition to Trump looking to pardon himself, they're also looking into how they can undermine and potentially fire special counsel Bob Mueller. Now, I think the most important part of this story is that Trump, whenever he tweets about the special counsel, he spells it wrong. Every time. The President of the United States cannot figure out which counsel to use when talking about special counsel Bob Mueller. All right, that's definitely not the biggest point to take from this, but I just wanted to point out how ridiculous it is the President of the United States can't figure that out, and somebody in his office hasn't checked him on that yet. But never one to be outdone even by himself, Trump is exploring ways, like I said, he could undermine or fire Bob Mueller. In the past couple weeks, past couple days, Trump and surrogates have steadily been attempting to discredit the investigation, the investigators, and Bob Mueller himself. So far, their focus has mainly been on the Democratic tilt of Bob Mueller's investigative team. The Democratic tilt that I'm referring to is a lot of the investigators have donated to either Hillary or the Democrats in the past, the DNC, you name it, they may have donated to it. Legal experts say that they're not concerned about bias in the investigation's findings, but they are concerned about the appearance of bias because it could give Trump the wiggle room he, at this point, desperately needs to get rid of this independent counsel. This independent counsel is going to find something. Now they've expanded the parameters of their investigation into Trump's finances and his business dealings, something Trump said was a red line for him, that he did not think investigators had the right to look through. So if there's ever been a time where he's going to get desperate, he's going to do something, well, he does a lot of crazy stuff, but he ever does something just completely out of his damn mind, this is going to be it, because we're getting close to that red line. And as we know, Donald Trump always handles all these things gracefully. So we'll see what comes of that. So far, there haven't really been any leaks other than those by supposedly Mueller himself in order to keep the integrity of the investigation. I have more written down here in the pre-show notes about Russia, but really it feels like beating a dead horse at this point. There aren't this many connections to Russia if you had nothing to do with them. I think I've said it in past episodes. I don't know that Trump himself, Donald Trump, the President of the United States, directly colluded with Russia. Somebody in his campaign definitely did. There's way too many connections. There's way too many horrible cover-ups and awful lies that for some reason are peddled off as truth and accepted as such to a certain extent. But I really can't. I just can't talk about Russia anymore. So we'll move on to something that really truthfully matters. Senate healthcare. The bill that just refuses to go away. Now, senators were unable to get, the Republican senators were unable to get their bill even up for consideration in the past week. So, instead of, kind of licking their wounds, taking their L, they were like, hey, you know what? What do we even need a plan for? Let's just go ahead and see what happens, which is exactly what they're doing right now. They're expected to vote on a repeal bill next week, but as of right now, Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning, nobody has any idea what's going to make it to the floor, what's going to go up for consideration to make it to the floor. It's just a bizarre situation and a great example of Republicans run amok. Because John McCain is out of the Senate right now because he was diagnosed with a brain tumor last week. And real quick, a little side note. In this type of situation, politics really doesn't matter. I hope that he recovers. I hope the cancer completely goes away. I hope that the maverick of the Senate makes his return quickly and with a clean bill of health. But with that out of the way, because John McCain is not in the Senate, Mitch McConnell and Republicans can only afford to lose one Republican senator. Because with John McCain in the Senate, it's 52 Republicans, 48 Democrats. With John McCain out, 51-48. They can only afford to lose one person to get whatever in the hell they're going to put up on the floor. And once again, Republicans are leaning on the talking point that Democrats are being obstructionists. They're not allowing them to do the regular work of the Senate, which definitely does not include hurting millions and millions of poor and needy people. That talking point kind of overlooks the fact on little things like Republicans refusing to allow a vote on Merrick Garland when Obama appointed him with more than a year left in his term. And then, there's that pesky little Mitch McConnell statement about how his main priority is denying Barack Obama a second term. Yeah, that one didn't really work out. And I know I've ranted about it before. I cannot believe a senator, especially a senator in such a powerful position as Mitch McConnell's, Senate Majority Leader, would say that. You don't think there's something better you can do with your time than trying to deny, for 4 years, trying to deny a sitting president their next term? You couldn't think of one thing that was more important than that? One thing? I mean, for God's sake, now that healthcare is back in the news, Obamacare's popularity ratings are through the roof compared to where Democrats were able to get them, simply because the Republican plans that they've put forward are so garbage. Obamacare looks amazing next to it. And Obamacare is a flawed program. Obama said it himself. Obamacare is a flawed program. If somebody could come up with fixes or come up with something that worked better, he would be all for it. But they haven't done that. All they've done is come up with bills that kick $22 million off of their insurance, that cut millions and millions from Medicaid. And that money goes to the people that need it the most. And now, it's anybody's guess what's going to hit the Senate floor this week. But as of right now, people expect it to be a repeal-only bill instead of repeal and replace. They're talking about repeal, then replace. I've talked about it before. This is an awful idea. This would be catastrophic for the insurance market. No insurers are going to stick around when they know that the insurance market is collapsing in 2 years. None. It's going to drive premiums through the roof. People are going to be unable to afford insurance to the tune of 32 million people by 2026 being uninsured. Also, that Republicans can get rid of Obamacare just to spite a president who's not even sitting anymore. Just to spite President Obama. People don't even know why they oppose the bill. On Twitter this whole week, I've been seeing things about reporters going into Republican communities or talking to voters who would readily admit to being Republican. And a lot of them say they don't exactly remember why they hate Obamacare. Part of that is because there's some confusion over the fact that Obamacare is also the Affordable Care Act. They're one and the same. Part of that is because, like I said, the Republicans' bills they've put up so far have been absolute trash. But part of that, and most of it, is because Republicans tied Obamacare to, Obama. And now that Obama's out of office, it's not such a good rally cry. I mean, it really wasn't a good rally cry to begin with, but Republicans are still hell-bent on getting rid of Obamacare, even though it would mean millions and millions more uninsured, millions and millions being cut from Medicaid, and the key thing, tax cuts for the wealthy. But we'll see what happens. I really love that the ironic part of all of this is that Republicans have spent the past 8 or 9 years railing against Obamacare. And now, because of that and the bills they've put up, they've made Obamacare more popular than ever, more popular than Democrats were ever able to, which, of course, only makes it harder for them to consider those senators that they desperately need to break their way. So, moving on to something new and different, I feel like we've talked about Russia and healthcare for like the past 6 weeks. That's it. That's dominated my coverage so far. But Spicer's out. He's gone. SNL is going to have to find somebody new for Melissa McCarthy to portray in the Trump White House. As you probably know by now, Sean Spicer resigned Friday over objections to Trump hiring Anthony Scaramucci as his communications director, a role in which Sean Spicer was already serving. Before he resigned and before Scaramucci was hired, he was serving as communications director and press secretary, even though Sarah Huckabee Sanders had taken to doing the press briefings. Scaramucci formerly worked as a Wall Street executive and most recently worked at the Export-Import Bank. That took like 3 tries. Spicer wanted Scaramucci, a.k.a. the Mooch, which, unless I have the wrong like definition of Mooch, that does not seem like a endearing nickname for somebody in the financial field. But anyway, Spicer wanted Scaramucci to report to him, but Trump declined. And after that, Spicer put in his resignation. I'm sad to see Spicy go. I'm sure SNL is heartbroken over it. He's an extremely entertaining guy. He doesn't mean to be. Like, coming out his first day on the job and ranting and raving about the size of the inauguration crowds, the many, many times he misspoke, the unnecessary energy he brought to his confrontation with White House reporters. It's another blow to White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, too. Both of them are formerly employed at the RNC. When Priebus came to work for Trump in the White House, he brought Spicer along with him to serve as press secretary. And so he was seen as a Reince Priebus ally. And Reince Priebus is running out of allies in the White House. And this new communications director, Scaramucci, doesn't help things, because if you saw his introductory press conference, or I don't know if it was a press conference, but he was there and he was speaking in front of a podium, which we haven't seen from the White House in a couple weeks. He's clean. He's smooth. The guy's a salesman. And I don't know if it's more that Spicer and Huckabee Sanders are very confrontational and they get very aggressive, or that this guy really just genuinely is that smooth. I don't know which one it is, but he's dangerous. I really think the guy could do some damage, because he can represent this administration's horrible policies. He can present them in a way that actually sounds decent, or not quite as bad as it actually is. So I'm kind of worried that somebody in the Trump administration, possibly Trump himself, though I doubt it, managed to get their act together and hire somebody smooth in the communications department. But I really want to get to the big news of the day. This episode's going on long. I did not realize we were at 23 minutes already. But that doesn't matter. The biggest news of the week, which I saved the best for last because it is so highly entertaining, Jeff Sessions. Now, as you may recall, Jeff Sessions is also played by a woman on SNL. The very funny Kate McKinnon plays him as kind of an odd little elfish version of Jeff Sessions, who recently has become Trump's new favorite punching bag. On Wednesday, in an interview with the New York Times, Trump said he never would have picked Sessions as the Attorney General if he'd known he'd recuse himself from the Russia investigation. Now, this article by itself was bizarre, and if you read the transcripts, it was extremely tough to read with all the incoherent rambling. The amount of times that the interviewers had to put garbled or something to that effect was ridiculous. And then the sentences that they were able to print, a lot of them don't make a lot of sense. Kind of leaning into that fact that maybe Trump is mentally in decline. But I'm not Alex Jones. I'm not Rush Limbaugh. That conspiracy theory is way out there. I do not support it, but I'm just saying, read the transcripts and you might become a believer. Then, Friday night, the Washington Post reported that Sessions had discussions about United States policy towards Russia and the 2016 election with Sergei Kislyak. I can't say opioid, but I can say Sergei Kislyak without a problem. Now, Sergei Kislyak is the same person who Sessions had contact with that forced him to recuse himself from Russia investigation in the the Russia investigation in the first place. So, Sessions forgot. He has that Trump administration amnesia about meetings with Russians. He forgot to disclose the first meeting with Kislyak. Now there was evidently another meeting with Kislyak in which United States policy and the 2016 election were discussed, only lending more credence to the idea that somebody in the Trump campaign colluded with Russia. So, Jeff Sessions still has a job as of right now, but really, who knows for how long. In Trump world, he could serve as Attorney General for the next 3 years, or he could be fired tomorrow. It's really a gamble either way. Nobody, including Trump, has any idea when Jeff Sessions is going to leave the post, but it does feel like he's going to leave soon. He's definitely become Trump's new favorite punching bag. With that being said, let's move on to the second installment of this new section called Quick Hitters, which, if you don't know what a quick hitter is, it's just a really quick play in basketball. First topic, foreign terrorism suspect was brought to the U.S. to be tried in federal court instead of being sent to Guantanamo, which is ironic because it, one, breaks with the Trump administration policy, their hardline policy on this, that they should be sent to Guantanamo Bay. Reason number two, it's ironic. Republicans gave the Obama administration endless amounts of crap for doing the same thing. But now that the Trump administration is doing it, everybody's just kind of sweeping it under the rug, kind of trying to forget their old comments to Obama. Number two, the Trump administration is banning travel to North Korea. Up to this point, United States citizens had been allowed but discouraged to visit North Korea. This comes in the wake of increased tensions in the region. There are missile tests that are directly aimed at harming Americans, and the death of Otto Warmbier, who visited North Korea and was imprisoned and obviously eventually died. And we talked about that a couple episodes back. Number three, quick hitter. So far in the Trump administration, there has been a 40% increase in ICE arrests. 65,000 people have been arrested and at very least are in the process of being deported in the Trump administration. That was a bad choice for a quick hitter. I have way too much to say about that, but I need to keep this moving. So I'm going to hit that next week. Number four, everybody's favorite savior, Jared Kushner, failed to disclose $1 billion in loans in his name, of which he has personally guaranteed $300 million of. I really don't know what to say about that. Imagine somebody's mental health when they owe $1 billion. Right now I have a pretty low student loans, and I'm stressed about that. I can't imagine having $1 billion tied to your name like that. And finally, I mentioned it in the intro of the episode, the demystification of the White House and really politics in general. Now, I'm all for more people being involved in the political process. Hell, that's part of the reason this podcast exists. But politics is hard. Understatement of the century, I know, but politics is hard. People's lives are literally at stake with the decisions you make, like the healthcare bill. Politics isn't something you should get involved in just because your name recognition is high. Kim Kardashian shouldn't get involved just because everybody knows who Kim Kardashian is. Trump's a perfect example for this. His administration is floundering. Every day it seems like it's on the verge of collapse. 6 months in, he still has 3.5 months of his term left, which 3.5 months, 3.5 years of his term left. In part, this struggle is due to his and some of those around him being completely new to politics. Some of it is due in part to his just general awfulness. But a lot of it can be contributed to him not having any experience in the political field. He's completely new to all of this. And he's president of the United States right now. If people like Kanye, The Rock, Mark Cuban, or somebody who's recently been tied to a Senate run, Kid Rock, want to get involved, that's great. Their celebrity status will bring more people into politics. At very least, any of those four I just named, if they run, more people are going to get involved in politics, or at least pay just a little bit of attention, which would be nice. But politics is too important for it to just become a popularity contest. The person with the biggest amount of name recognition doesn't always have the best ideas. Oftentimes they don't have the best ideas. If the four I just mentioned, or really any celebrity for that matter, have real interest in getting involved and trying to make people's lives better, by all means run. Absolutely run. But they need to be judged based on their ideas and their solutions, not because you like their music or their TV shows. Which, side note, The Rock's TV show Ballers, which just drops tonight, the new episode, the new season starts tonight. Amazing show. Check it out. Free plug. Don't care. Crazy. But on a serious note, really they need to be judged on their ideas and their solutions. Not the fact that most of America knows who they are. They think it'd be funny if Kid Rock wins a Senate seat. So with that being said, that ends episode 10 of Politically Charged. Thank you for listening this far. If you made it this far, if you have suggestions, comments, questions, you can hit me up on the website, politicallycharged.us, or the Facebook page, the Instagram account. You can message me or just at me on Twitter, at Jack Berlin. I think, hopefully, Thursday, I have a great guest coming on. We'll know more about that Tuesday or Wednesday, so we'll see what happens there. And with that, thank you very much for listening this far into the episode. Come back next week, Monday morning, 5 a.m., Rise and Grind, Politically Charged. We out.